Delicious in Dungeon, but with dragons? Let's find out.
The answer is no, not at all. Welcome to another Volume 1 review. Today we're talking about the first volume of Drifting Dragons. And if you don't know anything about Drifting Dragons, allow me to hit you with a synopsis. The draking vessel, the Quinzaza, soars through the skies, hunting dragons that hide in the clouds. A single big catch means full coffers and all the meat they can eat, while failure means an empty wallet and an even emptier stomach. Join us as we log the crew's grand adventures, chasing dreams of the sky, dragons, and gourmet cooking. I don't know about all that, but okay.
I mean that is what it's about.
But before we get too into it, Megan, give us some more information about this series.
The mangaka is Kuwabara Taku. Other works include, I'm so sorry for the pronunciation, Takabu Tokubetsu Kagai Katsudobu. Specialized Department, Special Perpetration Activities Department.
You're wild for reading the. It's very respectful
because
of you
sometimes
to
I
read
can't,
the Japanese title, but
because sometimes
you're brave.
Because sometimes I can't find the English. I had to translate this myself. I couldn't find it.
Oh, really? For real?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Crazy. Okay, continue.
So I don't even know if that's right. Okay, in 2013, he was also involved in a cool project called Manga Day to Day in 2020, and it was a collection of over 100 manga artists, and it depicts everyday life post-coronavirus world.
Oh, dang.
So there's a lot of different mangakas, and he wrote a small story in that. And he was a part of that collaboration. This was published, Drifting Dragons, in 2016. Woo, class of 2016, let's go.
That's crazy. Don't say that.
2016, let's go. It's almost 10 years for me. Shit. And it's still ongoing because there was a question mark next to that. So I do not think it's over.
Yeah, the manga seems to be ongoing, but there is an anime adaptation that was released on Netflix.
There is. That came out in winter 2020. And the studio is Polygon Pictures. They did Ajin, the adaptation to Ajin, and the Blame movie. These are all 3D rendered anime movies, and Drifting Dragons is 3D animated as well. And Drifting Dragons is seinen.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I watched a little bit of the anime, just some clips and a trailer before this review. And I'm not a fan, dude. I'm not a fan of the 3D style. Sometimes, like in Medalist, which is another series we recently covered that recently got an anime adaptation, it's not 3D for the entire time, but there are certain moments, specifically during the ice skating, the ice skating numbers, that it is 3D. And it doesn't look bad. It looks really good. I mean, Demon Slayer, we talk about Demon Slayer when we have this conversation all the time. It can look good, but Drifting Dragons to me doesn't look good. Ajin doesn't look good. I haven't seen the Blame movie, but if it's anything like the other two, I imagine it also doesn't look good. And this is my personal opinion.
Yeah, it depends for me. Like, I do like Dorohedoro, that is 3D.
Dorohedoro's great too.
I do like High Score Girl, which is 3D. It really just depends on like if the story is good enough where the 3D I can kind of not harp on it much. This I probably wouldn't watch.
Yeah.
But
not just because of the 3D. And we're going to talk about that. Let's just jump into our spoiler-free review with my first question to you, Megan. Did you like it? Be real. Be honest.
I didn't really like it.
And why not?
It just felt really one note to me. I wish there were deeper moments within the first volume. I wish the MC wasn't as one note as he is.
Mm-hmm.
And the characters in the crew weren't they weren't endearing enough for me to care about anything that was happening. There was really no conflict other than like, we're going to go get the catch. And even that was resolved every time pretty quickly and with no issues.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be different further along in the other volumes. Like there might be much more conflict and like actual stakes. But with this, I felt there was no stakes at all. Because of the nature of like the fighting, I guess. There's really no conflict there.
Yeah.
But that's about it. Even like the cooking, I find other series do that aspect better.
Mm-hmm.
And make it look like I want to eat it. And with this series, it just didn't really do that for me. It kind of just did not hit the mark. I mean, obviously, when we talk about the art, that's another story. But like the characters and the slice of life aspect, the stories weren't fun enough for me to latch onto. And I just didn't really care much about what was going on.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I'm being very harsh, but
you're being honest. And I think you're just expressing your personal feelings about it. I don't think you're being mean.
I'm just kidding. No. But yeah, that's just my personal. So like, did I like it? No, not
and that's
really.
Fine. And that's okay. I'll be honest. I wasn't a huge fan of it either, mostly because I really didn't know what this was about, and I was very surprised. Obviously, because of the comparison in the intro to Delicious in Dungeon, this is a story about hunting dragons and killing dragons and eating dragons. So you would think that the dragons, in order for you to morally, I guess, like for you to be on the side of the protagonists, the crew, the people you're following, you would think that the dragons would be vicious creatures that are, taking out, destroying villages and killing people.
Yes.
But they're not. They're very docile.
Yes.
And not only that, they don't look like dragons. And here's my big beef. This cover, and I'm sure, shout out to Megan, who's been killing it with the edits. I'm sure Megan will also put up a picture so you can see it maybe a little bit better. But there's a dragon, a red dragon, on the cover that looks like
menacing.
A traditional, what you think of, what you picture when you picture a dragon. Menacing, evil, coming out of the clouds. Not once is this dragon in this volume at all. Not only is that specific dragon not in it, but there are no dragons that even look kind of like that dragon. They look like faceless, weird. Sometimes they look like angels from Neon.
Right.
And other times they look like sky whales, which is something else that we'll get into. I
appreciate the deviation and creating something new from dragon lore, which has been around forever. And, it's like vampires. When you add a little twist or you add differences in how they look, it can be fun and it can be cool. When your story is called Drifting Dragons, you gotta bring the dragons. You gotta bring the dragons. And the choice to deviate between the core of dragon lore, which is that they cause mayhem and they do tend to take out villages and kill people, and they're scared. People are scared of them because of that. That's not. Why would you take that aspect out of it?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like making Attack on Titan.
Mm-hmm.
And the fucking Titans are docile.
And they're just doing their own thing.
They're doing their own thing in the forest, chilling.
Never do they ever really, or rarely do they ever attack a village.
And then they're just like, we're the scouts. We're sending the scouts out to kill them. Like, huh?
Yeah. And they have families. They have other Titans, or in this case, dragons that they care about, babies that they care about.
But it's so insane. That's the choice that I was a bit confused about, because obviously there's stories like this, like where you're hunting dragons and using their parts and stuff, like that's a cool idea for a story, but it would be cooler if the dragons fought back.
Yeah.
It would be cooler if the dragons were a problem in society. It would be cool if it was a fair fight.
Yeah.
But we don't get that.
This is an allegory. This is essentially whaling, but with dragons in a fantasy setting. Sometimes, especially in the second chapter, the dragon that they catch at the very beginning that specific dragon looks exactly like a sky whale. And you can tell by the weapons that they use and by the things that they get from the blubber, the
dragon
oil, like all the things that they get from the dragon. You can tell that this is supposed to be a reimagining of like basically fantasy whale hunters.
Right. Right.
And again, they don't go. I think in the anime, there's a line where they say that a specific species of these dragons are extinct, but not all dragons are like running the risk of becoming extinct. And I don't remember that line specifically in the manga, but it's still just kind of odd. It's still just kind of like aimless. I feel like a lot of the characters, like Megan said, are really just very like surface level and shallow, and it's not a type of story that like personally I am really like interested in reading. Maybe I would be if there were more interesting things happening, like if they were taking out these docile, mostly harmless dragons, but they had like a reason for doing it. They were conflicted about doing what they were doing, but they had to do it because they had to feed their family, or they had to for any number of reasons. But like we just like in the synopsis that was provided and we read, they talk about like getting to know the crew as they go on their adventure, and you like sort of kind of do, but it's all so surface level. I wrote down, if it's supposed to be about the crew, and why it's supposed to be about the crew and why they became Drakers, but it's not. There's no depth given to any character in the first volume. Like you kind of see like moments here and there where like they talk about their father, or they talk about like kind of why they're up there, but not really. And maybe after the first volume, we get to learn more about them. But in this volume, we don't. And the main character, Mika, is just someone who literally is so psyched about killing dragons and smelling. He can smell them, and he doesn't want to kill them with certain weapons because it'll ruin their meat, which again is hunting, right? But again, as a story, it's just not something I was super like drawn to or interested in.
I mean, yeah, that's just pretty much what we get. I kind of thought in one of the chapters we were going to get a little bit more with one of the other characters. I think her name's Vanny. Mm-hmm. Even that was very odd and had really no meaning behind it at all.
And if it does have meaning,
it was lost.
Well, but if it does have meaning, it's super dark. And we'll get there when we get there, because my possible interpretation of it could be like super weird and dark.
I had no interpretation because there was nothing to interpret. It was trying to like show like through glances.
Yeah.
What? I'm confused.
Yeah.
I'm just confused. And we talked about, again, this is like the spoiler free section, our comparison to Dungeon Meshi. And we were kind of talking about it off camera, and we were like, why does Dungeon Meshi feel different than this story? Why does Dungeon Meshi, when it's essentially doing kind of the same thing, feel as like just jarring? I mean, both of them are just completely different stories, but they're, cooking up a magical creature's meat and eating it and using things on its body to, sustain people and help people.
Yeah.
We had explained why, and it is essentially like Dungeon Meshi. They are in the dungeon. They realize, fuck, we don't have enough food. We don't have enough supplies. We don't have enough money to get food. We're essentially trapped in this dungeon, and if we can't get out, then we're going to die. If we don't have food, we don't have sustenance. This is a need. This is a necessity for us. And that's where they meet Senshi, and he is teaching them the cooking ways of the dungeon and how to use every morsel of what you're given, and to, really appreciate the creature that is giving you this food. And it's always respectful. And some of the creatures even attack them, and then they, fight with these creatures, and then they eventually kill them, and then they get to eat them. And it just feels different because there is a back and forth kind of fight, and they have to do it.
They have to do it, like you said. They're trying to save Laios' sister. Like,
there's an overarching plot to be had as well.
Yeah.
Like there is something that they're working towards. This is our job. We're killing dragons. We're making money. And essentially that's pretty much it. It's the deadliest catch of the sea. I mean the sky.
And it's interesting because we had to go back and look at clips from Delicious in Dungeon, and they're pretty graphic about like how they skin things or chop things up, and they're not trying to make anything any cuter, but I think it's more about the culinary art of it, and there is a respect to it. And this is just about the hunt, and this is just about the money. And I think that's the main difference.
There are cooking scenes. Like you do get to see the final product of a couple of these dishes that they make. And they do explain what they're kind of doing in it, but it's majorly the hunt. Like you said, and
it's almost like they're getting off on the hunt, whereas
the main character is
hunting. I eat meat. Okay, so I'm not saying hunting is bad. But hunting for sport, I don't think is very morally cool. And definitely not hunting endangered species, which, again, the fantasy dragons, the fantasy animals in this story aren't. And they aren't hunting for sport either. They're hunting for like oil. They're hunting for food. They're using all of the animal.
Right.
But it still feels different.
Well, you have your main. It's like having a main character. Like I kind of talked about Silver Spoon a little bit, and it is like a farming college anime manga, and it would be so odd if there was a character that was like, I fucking love to kill pigs.
Right.
I love to slaughter pigs. I love to cut off their skin. I love to hunt them. I love to chase them in the ring and catch them with my bit. Like, no one's talking like that.
Even if Senshi was doing that.
Right.
Like if Senshi was in a dungeon. Because even Laios is kind of like weird about it. And bro, even Delicious in Dungeon, and I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but like we were talking about it off camera too, about how Marcel even has issues like eating humanoid creatures. So it even goes kind of like farther than this does at certain points. But it always seems to handle it in a much more interesting way. And Senshi's not like sharpening his knives like, oh yeah, I can't wait to not just eat one of these creatures.
No, he
I can't
wants
wait
to
eat. Kill. And they say like, I can't wait to butcher.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't want to like I don't enjoy reading a story with a main character like that. I would rather read a Delicious in Dungeon or watch a Delicious in Dungeon.
That's what I mean. Like you want to root for these characters, but like seeing what they kind of do, and there's even a panel, again, like not really spoiling anything because I do want to show it because I was like, it made me sad.
Yeah.
And this is, again, like not real creatures. It's a fictional story. I understand.
That's what
we get it. But when you have a character putting out a dragon out of its own misery and they meet eyes.
Yeah.
And they look at each other and the dragon's final moments. And it's like,
yeah.
Oh my. And then they're like cooking it up. I love killing. Like,
yeah.
Oh my God. Like, how can I feel like happy for y'all? Like, it made me feel weird. Yeah. And I don't know. And even in Delicious in Dungeon, like, not to keep comparing them, but it's just not that. You don't see Senshi killing a final fucking basilisk or whatever the fuck, and it's like meeting basilisk meeting eyes as his like final breath is like fucking.
Or the basilisk isn't just like, or whatever, isn't just kind of like doing its own thing. It's usually attacking them. It's usually like causing them some sort of problem. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's usually a reason for them to do it.
Right. They don't go out of their way to be killing these creatures. Obviously, they need to get food and they need to find food along the way. But in those moments when they're desperate, like they do get like, mushrooms or like a plant or something, or they just run into trouble. And it's like, this story was so different if the dragons were fighting them back. And they do essentially fight back. They do
fight back because they're being attacked.
Yeah, like, that's the main part about it.
There's another line where essentially like the greenhorn, she says like, I can't help but feel kind of bad about like killing these dragons because they seem like they are pretty smart creatures. And the main character, what's his name again? Mika. He turns around and it's paneled as this like super heroic, like badass moment, but it just comes off super weird. Like Mika, that's another note I wrote down. Mika is fucking weird, bro.
There's something about him.
No, he turns around and he says, you got it twisted. Something to this effect. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, they're not like super nice creatures. Like when you go toe to toe with a dragon, you got to be willing to lose your life too, because like they won't hesitate to take you out. It's like they won't hesitate to take you out, but you initiate it.
You're initiating.
They won't even try to attack you if you like. They wouldn't be attacking you if you didn't initiate it. So
right.
It's like, I don't know, but it's paneled and it's framed like the super heroic, and she's kind of like, oh, like. In awe
but it is confusing because there's another point where someone is concerned about a dragon being near a village, but we don't see any dragons ever pillage
they're not that sentient, they're not that smart.
So then why would he be so concerned? That's why it's like mixed signals.
Well, because they say dragons rarely, very rarely attack villages. So you assume then that sometimes they do. Just like
there's like a chance.
Yeah, just like I would assume that like, it's very rare that certain wild animals wander into, certain other or other, small towns or whatever. I'm sure it happens, but it's probably pretty rare.
Like great white shark, I think.
Like a great white shark attack, maybe something like
it's
that. I was
rare.
thinking of even like when a bear might wander into a little town or something.
Right, bear attacks, like all of these things are very rare. Like again, if you're antagonizing the creature, then it might be a different story. And the percentages go up if you are in their environment. Yeah, they're actively going into their environment and like fucking with them,
bro. And that's the thing. They make a point to say like they rarely attack villages.
Or people, for that matter.
So, like, why are you including all these lines? Like, you as the author have the power to make these dragons whatever you want. And honestly, maybe it has to, bro. It has to in the next couple volumes. Like, they have to encounter dragons that look more like dragons, because why else put that fucking dragon on the cover? Like, that is so weird to me. And
they have to, and I feel like they would have to start attacking villages.
They have to get more evil, but like, why open your story like this? And chapter 1, which we'll save it for the beat by beat, but like such an odd chapter to an odd situation to start the story off on.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's all we really have to say, I think, about like the feeling that we got without spoiling anything before we get into the beat by beat. We talked about like the characters and the story. Like, how did you feel about the art?
First of all, the art is the only thing that I think kind of sort of saves this.
Gorgeous.
It's gorgeous.
That's why it hurts so much.
Gorgeous. It's some of the most beautiful art
I know
I've seen in a manga, and it's very like, at least the cover is very reminiscent of Miyazaki. Something about the art style. Maybe it's the colors. Maybe it's just like,
it's like the softness too.
It's the softness. I think. It's also maybe the uniforms that they're wearing. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It looks incredibly beautiful, and it's stunning.
No, stunning. I mean, like, literally, like that's. I mean, the cover. If you know nothing about it, you're like, whoa, these people are going toe to toe with dragons, like people, and they don't have a dragon of their own.
Yeah,
like everything that you think of is like, okay, your brain automatically like, what do I know about dragons? They can breathe fire. They're fucking they're crazy, super strong. You're thinking about all of the depictions of dragon. Okay, well, like, how like fucking Game of Thrones, even other anime that involve dragons, like even like Dragon Maid. Like they talk about how crazy and menacing they are. And then I'm like, okay, like you're really like, let's go. Like this is gonna be based off the cover, a crazy story. The art's beautiful, and then you're like, oh, this is what it's about.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And yeah, I mean, there are, in most media, like dragons are like sinister. But even in House of Dragons, like people get really attached to the dragons. When a dragon dies in House of the Dragon, it's like, I forgot exactly how they worded it, but they call them like their sky dogs or something, like, because they the audience feels like attached to them as much as they would like their own dog sometimes.
Oh no, for sure.
And in like How to Train Your Dragon, like there are pieces of
my fourth wing hat. I literally forgot I was wearing this. Yeah, literally in Fourth Wing too. Like it's about dragons and how people are scared of them and how even I don't want to get into it, but exactly
How to Train Your Dragon.
Exactly.
There are other pieces of media where they're like friends with dragons, but like that's like again.
You don't have to be friends with dragons in the story,
it's making
though.
The choice, like you could be an evil dragon, or you can have a story with evil dragons, or you can have a story with good dragons. But like, that's up to the writer. So it's just interesting that the writer made this choice. The art is absolutely stunning, though, and I'll say this about the art too: the dragon designs, like you mentioned earlier, are really, really cool. They just don't look like fucking dragons. So there's a certain point where I even start to think, why even call them dragons? But hey, whatever. Because they look cool. They just look like, one of them looks like a Neon Genesis Evangelion angel. One of them looks like a sky whale. One of them looks like almost like a, you know how when you zoom into a microscope and you see bacteria or amoeba, it looks like something you see in the freaking quantum realm. It doesn't look like a
very
dragon.
Like deep sea.
Honestly, yeah.
Very deep sea, because we're making the comparison, right, to like whaling and fishing. I mean, like Deadliest Catch. This is the deadliest catch of the fucking seas. Yeah. So they don't really look too much like dragons. I think we've kind of talked also then about like the strengths and weaknesses. Yeah, for sure. I mean, we could talk about, would you recommend this? I would say for a better story, for a better time, just to feel something better. Delicious and Dungeon all the way. You know, I don't even know how I would feel. I don't think I've ever even seen an anime or manga about hunting. Because hunting in itself is not, again, it's not, we're not talking about morals, but it's just like the feeling that you get, I guess. Like hunting, there was an anime about like hunting deer or like whatever, like you said, for sport, you know, that's not really cool, but like if you're hunting to eat, then like no shit, like that's fine. I think that's even better than farming and like you know what I mean, like, but I've never experienced this, so I was a bit thrown off by the premise and like the overall like message of just like, this is what we do, we like to do this, we're just hunting these dragons, because it's just not something that interests me. Yeah, I think what it comes down to for me, I want to be very clear. I understand that dragons are fucking not real. Okay, I totally get that. But hunting, and especially since we're comparing it to whales, hunting is something that happens in our world. And I eat meat. So again, I want to be very clear and say, I'm not saying hunting equals bad. What I'm saying is that I don't want to see someone hunt for sport, which again, they're not. I don't want to see someone hunt endangered species, which again, they're not. But I think more than anything, I don't want to see someone like fucking hunt and like get off on hunting. If someone has to hunt, I want to see them hunt because they have to eat. They have to provide for themselves or their family or their village or their town. Like I want there to be a reason that they're hunting. And I would hope that, like in Delicious and Dungeon, they're doing it in a respectful way. Yes, in Drifting Dragons, they use all the meat. They use the bones. They use everything. So but it's for respectful profit in that way. But it's for profit. And there are many other jobs they could do. And they just choose to do this. And in the case of like everybody else, that's on them. But maybe that's the only thing they can do, or maybe this is just the position that they ended up in. But in the case of the main character, he fucking loves it. He just loves dragons. He loves killing them. He loves eating them. He loves butchering them. He loves, and his eyes light up like in a way that I think we're supposed to get excited about. Yeah, we're fired up. Like we want to kill dragons too. We want to eat dragons too. And it just comes off as weird. So that's really what it is for me. And I agree with Megan. I would I recommend this? I would recommend it again. I think I said this with Goku Raku Guy. I said I would recommend the one shot and then read the first volume just so you can see the differences in how a story changes. I would recommend just like reading maybe like the first chapter of this, just so you can see what we're talking about. But outside of that, would I recommend it? No. I would also second what Megan said and send you to Delicious and Dungeon, because I think it's just a similar-ish kind of concept where they're eating fantasy creatures, but they're just doing it in a better way.
Period.
Yeah. And it's just way more entertaining. It's just way more entertaining. This just feels like I read the same chapter probably 5 times. Like there were some differences, but the main character makes it feel so similar to every other chapter.
Yeah.
Jumps on a dragon, kills the dragon, eats the dragon, round up.
Yeah.
Gets on a dragon, kills the dragon, eats the dragon.
Yeah, like I said.
Let's do it again.
If the situations were more interesting, if the characters were more interesting, if there was more like tension, if there was more, if there was just really more anything, maybe I would have enjoyed it more. But it is what it is. I don't regret reading it because I hope it makes for an interesting conversation. But yeah, that's gonna do it for our spoiler-free review. Stay tuned for our final rating after our beat by beat discussion, and you're not gonna want to miss that because we're gonna go into every chapter and talk about how truly absurd some of the things that happen in this first volume are. But before we do that, if you'd like to see more of these conversations and support this show, consider becoming a Patreon member by going to patreon.com/volumeofpod, or even by becoming a YouTube member, which you can do by clicking join somewhere next to the subscribe button on this video. It matters. It helps out a lot. And you can even check out our Patreon for absolutely free for the first 7 days just to see if you like it and to see if it's right for you. You can also listen to the audio only version of these episodes wherever you find or listen to podcasts. And other things that you can do for free to support these episodes are liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and leaving a comment about your thoughts, your feelings on this specific series. And if you haven't seen it or read it or know nothing about it, any comment at all helps, and we greatly appreciate it. Anyway, with that stuff out of the way, back to the review. So let's go through beat by beat, starting with you, Megan. You're up first this time.
So we open up on an airship and we meet some of our crew and the main character, Mika, who is on top of what looks like a dragon and stabs it in the back with a big ass harpoon. We learn that the ship is called the Queen Zaza.
And Mika is off the Zaza.
He's
literally
off the Zaza.
He loves jumping off the Zaza.
No, he does. He really does. It's like he loves that shit.
His one thing. Actually, his one thing is loving to kill dragons, and his other thing is being off the Zaza.
Right.
Yeah.
No, just those two things. And it's one of the few draking ships still in operation. We see the crew then selling their like spoils at the market. And when it's time to like settle down and stay, I guess, and lay their heads to rest, the mayor or whoever the fuck tells them like, oh yeah, no, you guys can't stay here.
Yeah, they tell them they can't stay there because draking ships, like there are rumors that they attract dragons, but like one of the guys gets pissed off.
And also he said like, yeah, y'all are a bunch of like criminals and lowlifes.
They aren't, but like historically,
yes.
draking crews were.
Yes.
Until recently, I guess.
I don't know. And there's like a prejudice against them. So they're like, yeah, you guys can stay on the ship. If you need anything, like let us know. We will bring it to you, but just know that you guys aren't allowed in the town.
You guys can't crash here.
Yeah, which they're kind of upset about because they're fucking dirty and want to be in a bed. But
and the one guy that gets upset is like, no shit, draking ships, like dragons appear near draking ships because draking ships go where dragons are. Mm-hmm. So it's not because like they attract dragons. We just go to where dragons are. There's a difference.
But what would it even matter because they're not going to attack you anyway.
Right.
So yeah. Anyway, we get to see our first cooking of dragon meat, which is a dragon tail sandwich. And Mika's just kind of cooking this up. And then he just eats it. And it's our
end of chapter 1.
No, it's literally just our first shot of a dragon meal. And as this is happening, as he's eating it, like the guy comes back and he's like, you have to help. There's a dragon spotted near my daughter's village. You have to kill it. Like, fuck. And they're like, okay, like you can ask us for help, but we can't enter your town. Like, that's so crazy. That's so silly. That's so wild. But for sure, we'll help you because we're going to get money from it anyway. So cool. Thank you for letting us know. And they just go to the dragon and they kill it, but they find out that it's the mama dragon from the one previously that they killed, and she's mad that we ate her baby. She's pissed, and they kind of kill it off, and this thing just looks like a fucking sea slug with teeth, and dragon who? Dragon where? Not a dragon to me, not a dragon to anyone else. It is a alien-like creature that they kill, and that's it.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about when I said, like, what an interesting or just kind of like odd way to open up your story. Because I think it's kind of cool. Okay, draking ships used to be manned by criminals and lowlives, but that is not true anymore. They have a stigma on them. I get that. I kind of like that. You know, there's some things that are like, okay, you're setting things up
You're cooking
in an interesting way. You're cooking, if you will. And then you know, it opens with the killing of the first dragon, and it's just there's just some lines in there that are a little odd. That Mika's, you know, he's getting off on it a little too much. You know, he's like, don't kill it this way because then this meat's not going to be good, or that smells tasty, or
I smell the dragons in the air. Yeah, and don't kill it yet because I don't
want it to struggle too much because then the meat's going to get too tough. So we got to like take it out with this. And there's a couple lines where I'm like, okay, all right, but let's see where
Mika.
it goes. But then it's really at the end of the first chapter where they find this second dragon who they go out of their way to say won't harm anybody, usually, unless it's like antagonized or whatever.
Well, which it was, because it was like they stole the baby and killed it.
Which it was, and then they're like, oh damn, this dragon looks mad, and one of them goes, dragons can't be mad, and they go, I think they can be, and maybe actually they're smarter than we think they are, because this is clear. And he goes, Mika goes, this dragon smells exactly like the other dragon, so this has to be the mom. So you find out it's an angry mom trying to avenge her little baby that they killed, and the way that the chapter resolves is them killing the mom too.
Killing the mom too.
And they're like, yeah, we did it.
That was a close one.
Yeah, and that's how it opens. So already I'm left with like a very weird taste in my mouth.
It's just interesting, like, why not just open with them selling one of the other dragons that they killed and then like having a fight between them in a regular? Why does it have to be the mom? Like,
well, I guess like my point about it being the mom is like making it the mom is kind of interesting, but like the moral there being no justice or moral like reason, like not that everything.
Not
again,
everything has to, but again, it's not. It's they're literally, it's just hunting. Like, it's just a hunting.
I don't want people to get it twisted. Like, I don't need every main character to be like, a fucking like morally just person in every single way. I like characters to have flaws, but this just felt really weird. This just felt really, really weird.
I would just say it's just one note.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Like
the main character, he's just like, this is what he likes to do, and that's pretty much all he gives us.
Literally, it's all he gives us. He doesn't even like to do. He loves, like, he's salivating. Like, he's like, you have to hold this man back because when a dragon comes around,
when he smells a dragon,
he goes he literally goes feral and he starts jumping off. Like, it's kind of crazy that is his only thing. His only thing.
I know, it seems like he's like a fucking some type of creature put in a man's body that like hunts dragons in like the wild.
Yeah.
It seems like he's a dragon himself put into a fucking man and like forced to live in a husk of a man's body because he just loves it way too much.
Too much.
And everyone else is like, damn, bro. No one else is like, fuck yeah, Mika, like you love dragons. Everyone's like kind of like, Like, literally, there's a whole chapter about, like, someone being like, that's a little weird. You're a little weird.
No, people in the story definitely go, like, he's fucking weird. He likes him too much.
But not, like, eccentric way. It's, like, weird in, like, a weird way.
Yeah.
Like, not in, like, he's so
like
silly.
A quirky...
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
He's just kind of an oddball.
He is.
But, yeah, that was chapter 1.
Well, chapter 2 opens with another kill, right? And the crew, like immediately, like the first panel is Mika jumping off the Queen Zaza, off the Zaza again, and fucking stabbing a fucking, and this one looks a lot like a whale. He's like, fucking blood's flying.
So happy to be killing.
No, so happy. And then it cuts to like them like rendering the fat to sell to the oil companies.
Yeah, the dragon oil.
Yeah, and the greenhorn, she's kind of learning about like the payment and how much money dragons are worth and how much they're gonna get paid and how much her cut's gonna be. And
I liked that panel. It was a little bit endearing.
There was a couple funny moments in this exchange, in this scene. And then she comes across like a very small dragon that kind of looks like a bird. It's literally the size of a bird, like a hawk, maybe.
It was a bird. It was a bird.
It was a bird. And kind of goes around the ship trying to catch it on her own. And then has to like recruit other people to help her, specifically Mika. And bro, Mika, when he finds out there's a tiny dragon on the ship, this will fucking lights up. He's like, I've never seen a dragon that small. Maybe I can kill it
and eat it.
I wonder what it tastes like. Like he goes, he like literally lights up. It's kind of funny, dude. So yeah, when he realizes he might get to kill a small dragon, like he's
oh my god,
he's fucking ready to go.
Oh my god,
and they go hunt it, and they find out like their captain gets bit, and they're like, oh, maybe the dragon is poisonous. And this other guy who had it captured was like, oh, you need to find it because it's not just any dragon.
And this is like on another ship, right?
No, it's on their ship.
It's on their ship? Okay, that's why I was confused. I was like, is this another ship? Apparently, it was like it's supposed to be a gift to like a fucking emperor or something.
That's the joke at the end. Because they find it, they eat it immediately.
No, Mika kills it like immediately. I mean, I will say there is a bit of threat because, yeah, like the greenhorn, she's scared that if it bites her, she's going to get like infected. And this thing is pretty gnarly. I mean, it has like little teeth and it opens up and it does look very menacing. I would not want to be in a room with that. And I probably would kill it too if it was fucking coming at me, honestly, truly. And I wouldn't relish in it, but I would be like, I need to kill this thing before it fucking bites me. Yes. And Mika just kills it immediately with a big ass. He just always has a big ass harpoon on him. Just like,
yeah.
And then it's just laying on the fucking table like dead, and they're like, okay, let's fucking, I guess we'll just cook it up.
And they cook it up. They make like some sort of like devil dish with it. I mean, it was kind of cool. But the joke is they eat it immediately because they're like, how much could a dragon this small really be worth? It's just a little guy.
Yeah.
So let's just eat it. And then you find out that the bite that the captain got had nothing to do with how he was feeling. He got bit, but he was just sick. He was just sick. He just had a cold. And then the punchline is like that dragon was actually worth like a shitload of money, and it was a gift to like another higher up, either royalty or official or something, and they ate it
and they fucked up,
but they also like never find out,
right?
So yeah, that was chapter 2.
So 2 dragons killed in each chapter so far.
2 dragons per chapter so far.
2 dragons per chapter.
Yeah. Then that brings us into chapter 3.
Yeah, and this, again, like, obviously I was feeling some type of way about it still, kind of weird. But this chapter opens up with the girlies, which is Vanny and the greenhorn. Do we know her name?
Yeah, her name is Takita.
And they're just being cute. They're brushing each other's hair, talking about dandruff, exchanging beauty products. I mean, we love to see it on a ship, camaraderie amongst females. And I was like, this is cute.
I'll say this too. This is when the slice of life aspect of the story really came into play and was really like charming. And it was even nice to see, like, because she's portrayed as like a badass character, and it was nice to see her have a little bit more depth and for her to be just like a person.
Yeah, she opened up to her and just said, they're asking like, why did you choose this job? Why did you come on this ship? And Vanny just basically says like, I had nowhere to go on the ground, so I learned how to fly. I was like, that was pretty fucking cool, Vanny.
Yeah.
And we then see Vanny and the main character Mika like start to exchange glances on the ship for some reason.
Well, I read it as just her looking at him. He only has eyes for dragons. Okay.
No, that's not true. He has for the greenhorn too. They've been real close.
I guess I could kind of see that.
then Mika also he did exchange some looks back.
Okay.
He was like, why is she like looking at me? Like he notices it. So they're like exchanging glances, not really saying anything. And then lo and behold, there's a dragon to kill. All hands on deck. Let's fucking go. Then Mika again just fucking runs in, super eager to kill it. Again, jumps off the fucking ship with the harpoon. And Vanny just seems like a little bit irritated by his eagerness to like kill dragons or to like put himself in danger. And he does exactly that. He jumps on the fucking dragon and like gets hurt and is like, whoa, like I'm fucking gonna pass out because he's just fucking getting crazy on this shit.
Yeah.
And she comes to save him, to save his ass. And she's like, I'll help you. Like, we got to put this thing out of its misery because, it's fucking suffering. And that's the fucking panel that we see with, like, her exchanging a moment with this dragon. Eyes, just meeting eyes, just...
Yeah. Just the dragon...
Damn.
The dragon is screaming. Like, screaming so loud that's what causes Mika's nose to bleed and for him to go all, like, wobbly, which is why she's like, we got to put this thing out of its misery because it is screaming. And the screams are piercing the ears of everybody and causing them to kind of lose their equilibrium and shit.
No, because, it's really loud.
Yeah, and so she looks in this creature's eye. They meet eye to eye, and then she repeats the same thing she said earlier, which was like, nowhere to go on the land, so I came to the sky. Almost as if to me, it felt like she was discovering a kinship with the dragon. Like, oh, the dragons don't have any place on the ground either because people are scared of them. People hate them, so they come to the sky. So me and the dragon actually have a lot in common. Oh, well.
Yeah.
And then they never kind of address it again.
That's what I mean. It was like,
it really was like, oh, we're getting somewhere.
No.
Something we're scratching the surface of something.
No.
But then it completely just like throws that out the window. Moves on.
Anytime anyone says like, oh, maybe I kind of feel bad about this, Mika comes in, don't feel bad about it. They're fucking dread, don't feel bad about it. Oh, I kind of feel like they're smarter. No, they're not. And it's like immediately discounted, immediately thrown out the window. Like no one could have a thought of that without it being pushed out and pushed away, which sucks.
Yeah.
Let there be other characters feeling some type of way. They don't all have to be Mika. Mika's his own character.
Yeah.
You can have other people feel kind of like, oh, you could have conflicted or maybe not, but just let it be. They don't let it be. They just immediately undercut it with like, let's eat.
Yeah. And that's actually what happens. Like it immediately goes to them cooking and the rest of the chapter, she doesn't seem conflicted. She doesn't seem like she just had like a realization. She's just kind of like back to being how she was and just kind of is how it's always been. Yeah,
again, just like exchanging looks. And then she asked him like, why are you on the ship? Oh, why do you think he's on this ship, Vanny? He says the same shit. I'm on the ship because I love killing dragons. I love cooking dragons. I love eating dragons. I love butchering dragons. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, he goes, pretty simple.
Pretty fucking simple, Vanny. Don't overthink it. Yeah. Don't overthink it. Don't think anything.
And maybe there is more to him that you find out later on. I do want to give the mangaka the benefit of the doubt because I haven't read past the first volume, but in the first volume, which I firmly believe is the volume you need to sell the reader on the most because it determines whether they're going to continue your series or not. I would hope that there would be a little bit more, and it just doesn't exist in this first volume.
Yeah, and that's where it ends. They have a dish. Yeah.
Fourth chapter. This is where it gets a little more interesting.
It does because there's not a murder.
There's not a murder in this chapter. But not for lack of Mika trying.
Yeah, he tried really hard.
Jiro, who's another character on the crew who got mad in the very first chapter.
I like Jiro.
There seems to be a little bit more to Jiro. We kind of find out a little bit more about him, but not a whole lot. Jiro tells a story that his father told him about a shining dragon. We find out that Jiro, his father was a Draker. And again, because we know that Drakers were usually criminals and lowlives, we can assume that his father was probably a criminal or a lowlife. And he also talks about having a weird relationship with his dad, how his dad would always go off and leave to go draking, but he kind of abandoned the family, left his mom and him with nothing, really.
Right, deadbeat.
Kind of a deadbeat. But he remembers him telling the story about the shining dragon that was kind of like a lighthouse in the sky.
And it literally helped a crew.
Yeah, guided them
to safety during a storm, and helped and cared about the crew enough to guide them, out of that
everybody's
madness.
Kind of laughing, and Mika's like, no, I mean, that could be real. I mean, we haven't discovered every kind of dragon there is. So, I mean,
he's salivating. We haven't discovered every dragon. Like, gotta wonder what it fucking smells like.
So they fly into a storm, and wouldn't you know it, they find the shining dragon, and the shining dragon helps them and leads them out of the storm. Is the only reason they were able to navigate out. The only reason they were probably able to survive. And Mika tries to fucking kill it. As soon as they get out of the storm, he's like, all right, let's fucking go.
Let's go.
And he tries to kill it. But that is where chapter 4 ends. And then chapter 5 opens with him sad because they weren't able to kill it. But
no, really sad.
Yeah.
To the point where you're like, bro.
But chapter 5 is the last chapter. So Megan, bring us home.
All right. So in the final chapter, the crew stumbles across a empty ship. Looks kind of ravaged and dingy, abandoned.
But it has a distress flag up.
Yes, that's why they go towards, because that ship needs help. It's empty, and then they start getting tailed by an actual ship. It's not a fucking dragon,
a sky ship,
another sky ship, and they're like, these are fucking pirates. You're like, what? That's cool.
Yeah.
That's a cool thing that could happen in the real world. That's an actual threat. Dragons don't really seem like an actual threat. They seem pretty easy to fucking kill.
Yeah,
honestly. But yeah, they get tailed by these pirates, and then, they're shooting at each other, and the greenhorn, the girl, she gets hit by some is it crossfire, shrapnel?
Yeah, she gets hit by shrapnel.
Yeah, and then
Mika, this is the first chapter where Mika is kind of a badass. He
honestly,
his crazy nature kind of comes in handy, because just like he would rush to jump onto a dragon, he rushes to jump on this enemy pirate ship.
I would say he's badass because he's fighting people that could actually hurt him.
Right, yeah.
I mean, the dragons just seem to pose no threat. I know they do. I know they can, but he just has such an upper hand on those fuckers when they're flying in the air. He's just going on their back and stabbing them in the back, essentially. But with the people, he's going toe to toe. He's fucking headbutting people. He's fucking shooting at people. He's even exchanging did you fucking shoot my friend?
Are you the one? We're shooting at Takita. Yeah.
And he's badass. He is badass. I'll give him that. And
this was a truly badass moment for him.
Yeah.
The only badass moment that I feel like he had this entire chapter.
Right.
Volume.
And he finds some dragon meat. And he's like, hell yeah, of course. We have to have one titled recipe.
Which I don't want to shit on that.
Each chapter.
Because Delicious and Dungeon did the same thing.
No, I'm not saying that's... No, I wasn't shitting on it.
I'm not saying that
Damn, that was crazy. I was not shitting on it. I was just mentioning what was happening.
I just want to make sure I'm getting ahead of it. Because
I love that about Delicious Dungeon. I even love in between the chapters, which was a cool thing, they give you the whole fucking recipe.
Yeah.
And they show you how to fucking cook it. I loved that.
And sometimes they'll tell you what you can use because dragons aren't real. So they'll say for this you can use duck.
Yeah.
For the first one, you assume that it's a beef, like a steak.
Yeah.
So yeah, they tell you kind of what you can substitute. And I feel like
they would have to, yeah.
Reading through it, it feels like an actual real recipe.
Yeah. And that was a cool touch. But he's, munching on it, and then lo and behold, look to the sky. Fucking dragon.
Yeah.
Looks tasty. His fucking catchphrase.
Yeah.
And they start manning the ship and going after this dragon. That's where it ends.
And that is where it ends.
And it's just weird how similar all of the chapters were, and how, I guess, just not in a good way. Well, not in a good way. Things happened that were different, but I think maybe, I don't know. I'm even looking at a cover right here, and there's a full. I got dragon, same as the cover.
Like a red, like
so
fantasy
insane.
D&D dragon.
So insane.
Which we don't see in the fucking first volume at all. And to the point of it being like, it feels like it was super repetitive. There are a lot of series, slice of life series, comedy series. I'll be honest, even Delicious in Dungeon was very repetitive in the beginning. And as it went on, you start to learn more about the characters and things, the world starts to open up and you learn about pasts. And then we have reasons to like keep moving forward. So the repetitiveness isn't like a negative like mark against it. It's just that like it was repeating something that to me wasn't interesting.
Right. Okay. That's fair. That's fair.
But so anyway, that's going to do it for our beat by beat discussion. Now let's jump into our final thoughts and our final rating. So Megan, I think it's pretty clear how we feel about this series by now, but what would you rate this and what are some of your final thoughts?
I mean, I've said all I needed to say, I feel. It was just a bummer. I wish I just enjoyed it more. I don't want to say that like, because it's not fair. It's not fair because some people, and I was reading online, it's kind of a mixed bag. There are a lot of people that enjoy this series. But it's not fair to me to say, oh, I wish it was a different story, because that's just not a fair statement to make, because it's not my story to tell. It's not my fucking manga. So I can't be like, oh, I love the art. I just wish it was completely different. Like, that's not my choice to make. And I can just read something else if I feel that way. And that's how I feel. I probably will not watch this. I probably will not continue it. And I probably won't even recommend it, unfortunately. So my final rating is 2 out of 5 harpoons.
2 out of 5 harpoons. Okay.
2 out of 5. I was going to give it a 3.
Insane.
But I remember giving like Goku Rakugai, I think, a 3.5. And I enjoyed that more than I enjoyed this.
Yeah, I that's crazy, because I was going to maybe go a little bit lower. But to kind of echo some of the same things that you said, if you do like this series, if you do end up checking it out, if you've already read it and you like it, it's not to say that you're wrong or you're a bad person.
No, it's just if you like hunting, if you like hunting, then this is the story for you.
Then yeah, like you might really like this. And I'm not saying that passive aggressively.
No,
or with
not
any
at
sort
all.
of undertone. Like, if you like hunting, this might be for you. I just don't like seeing a character or following a character who loves hunting for the sake of like killing, really, and just for the sake of like hunting. And maybe I actually would like a character that has that quality if it wasn't their only quality.
Right. And to be fair, again, it's volume 1. So this, things could happen along the way. He might get more depth. There might be more of a conversation about killing dragons further down the line. And I would respect that a lot. But we don't know.
So there's that point. The other thing is, I really don't like how, again, it shows a dragon on the other cover that Megan pulled up, which I'm sure she'll include an image of, or will have already included an image of. So there's the image of that dragon, the same image on the cover of the first volume. That dragon does not exist. They're very different looking dragons. I feel a little misled by just kind of that. Yeah, and I'm sure there are people who might say, okay, Josh, but you look at the cover of the first volume and there are people carrying weapons. And clearly you should be able to infer that they are killing and hunting them. But they look sinister. They look menacing. They look. It sends a different message than the inside ends up being.
That is there's a difference between hunting and like fighting.
Right.
And hunting and fighting. I was under the impression that they would be fighting these dragons.
Right.
Not going out of their way to hunt these dragons. And even if they were going out of their way to hunt the dragons, that they would be a threat to the humans below. That just wasn't the case. It was just going out of their way. Again, it's like AOT, like going after the Titans for what?
Yeah.
Like, for what reason? If they're like depleting ecosystems and they're taking sheep away from farmers. Like, okay, that makes sense. But there's no indication or even in inclination of that in the volume at all. Like, people are scared of them, but for why?
Yeah, I mean, and again, like that's something else I like about Delicious in Dungeon, the acknowledgement of like the ecosystem and things like that. And they kind of, I don't know, they touch on some things here and there within the first volume that lead me to believe that we might find out things later. They almost make me feel like drinking isn't even something that's super necessary. This Quinzaza is one of the last ships, and they only discovered really how to fly 50 years ago. So maybe again, like Megan said, there will be some more information revealed as it goes on. But I feel kind of misled from the cover just because there was a dragon that, not only did I not see, but looks nothing like any other dragon in the first volume. I was a little let down by the characters and, how one note they all felt. It ended up just being something completely different from what I expected it to be. However, I do think it's absolutely gorgeous, stunning, beautiful, and it's like something so beautiful. Like I would hang up a print of these covers. Like they're amazing pieces of art.
Definitely.
But yeah, I can't recommend it necessarily. If you again like hunting, maybe check out the first chapter. But I can't really recommend it beyond that. I would much sooner recommend Delicious in Dungeon over this. And if I had to rate it, I would honestly rate it 1 out of 5 harpoons.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Just because there was really no depth. I mean, really the 1, and it might even be like 1.5, because that score comes entirely from the art. Entirely from the art.
That's why I gave it a 2. That's what I mean. Yeah. There's really nothing else for me.
There's just nothing for me here. And the anime to me is not, it does not look good. I will not be watching the anime. Out of just sheer curiosity, I might just like skim ahead to see like what else is revealed, but I can't say that I'm like super eager to continue this either.
No, the only reason why I'd be eager is like, does it change? Or is it just the same? Yeah, that's not like the reason why you should want to continue to read.
Exactly. So yeah, that's my rating. And those are my final thoughts. And that's really it for our review and discussion of Volume 1 of Drifting Dragons. Not to be super negative. Hopefully we were able to articulate like why we didn't like certain aspects about it. Again, it's absolutely gorgeous and stunning visually. And there are, things here and there that it does do well. But I think just for the most part, it wasn't a story for us. It might be a story for you, though. So let us know if you have checked it out. What you thought about it. If you watch this, then go read it. Come back and let us know what you think. Any and all comments are appreciated. Subscribing,
encouraged.
Subscribing, liking, those things help. And if you'd like to take it a step further, and if you're able to take it a step further, then consider becoming a Patreon member. That would mean the world to us. You could do that by going to patreon.com/volume1pod. You can even become a YouTube member by clicking join somewhere next to the subscribe button on this video. It helps us greatly. It gives us the financial freedom to be able to take more time to do more of these and edit more of these and so on and so forth.
Yes. And our lowest tier is only $3 a month.
And you can even try it out for free if you want.
Yes.
As well, just to see if you like it. And we want to take a moment to thank specifically members of our V1P tier. So thank you to all, no matter how you show your support, but a very special thank you to
Jonathan R. Quattro,
Wombo, and David Ramirez.
Love you guys. Love you.
Thank you. From the bottom of both of our hearts. The only thing left to do now is to get out of here on our outro. That's always the same and never changes, which today, Megan, is I'm off the Zaza. Drifting dragons? More like fucking murdering dragons.
Pass me the Quinzaza.
Sure. Okay. Thank you for watching, for clicking on this video, for listening to the audio only if you're listening to it that way. We appreciate you. And until next time, pass me the Quinzaza.
Oh, God. All right.
Well, it's fitting. It's fitting.
We're high.
We're off the Zaza. That's why we can't get it right.
That's why we can't get it right. That's why we can't say.
I'm drifting with dragons right now.
Whoa.
I'm that fucked up.
Whoa.
Jesus Christ.